Oh man. You know what? Thanks, TW. Right on. TW, that was me, buddy. God darn it. Hey, listen, let's start over again. So remember all everything, forget about that. Now you got audio. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, JT here in the studio and Studio 10-4 live, and it is September 11th, uh, 2024. We are, yeah, scared me. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, April. We're remembering 9/11, 2001. And appreciate everybody that's tuning in so far. And T Dub, thanks, man. TW was, yeah, the sound. I had the sound turned off, probably driving Trevor crazy on the other end over there going, why couldn't he hear anything? I'll bet. He's shaking his head. Yeah. And now he can. Backtrack to what I said to myself because nobody else could hear it. Today's show is about remembering what it was like back in 2001, back at 9/11, when we all first heard the news of what was going on that day, remembering where we were at, how we heard about it, all the processes of what happened. And on today's show, to help us do that, thanks, TW, appreciate that. To help us do that, I've got Trevor Hardwick in the green room live. Going to have Dan Linss, our owner, creator, editor, man of many hats, in the show as well. Later, he'll be tuning in. And I have a recorded segment with Ron Beer. Ron and I did it earlier today. And I'll tell you the accounts of what happened, how we heard about it, what it was like when we heard about it, where we were when we heard about it. There's a lot of similarities, but in all three so far, myself, Ron, and Trevor, the accounts that we shared so far, while there are some similarities, there's definitely some uniqueness to each one of us and what we experienced. And something that I found that was really cool and really kind of puts some here's kind of a rundown of what it was we were seeing and how it all came down. This one's pretty good. 8:46 a.m. North Tower struck. 9:03 a.m. South Tower struck. 9:37 a.m. Pentagon struck. South Tower collapses. 9:59 a.m. 10:03 a.m. Flight 93 crashes in Pennsylvania, and at 10:28 a.m. the North Tower collapses. Now, these times, I think, and I don't know, but help me out here. I think these times were Pacific Coast times. I'm not sure if I remember now that I think about it, if it was that late, because that would have been at their time. It has to be because we were on a job. Myself, my guys that I worked with, we were all on a job. Eastern time, huh, April? Okay. And man, there's a whole bunch of you tuning in. Hi, guys. So glad I got everybody tuned in today. Phil, Eddie, TW. Nice to have Dale Boca Leone. Got to say Boca Leone. So April says Eastern time. That would, put the time that we were hearing stuff. And I mean, because I would imagine that the time it wasn't that much of a lag, even for those days, because we heard all this stuff coming over back in our day, AM FM radio in the trucks. I think I had I don't you know what? I didn't have Sirius XM back then. I didn't. I just had a stereo and CD player kind of deal, AM FM CD player. But anyway, so these times, I'm not sure, April. I'd love it if somebody would verify that if that was Eastern time. That would tell me that we had that much of a lag of information coming from the East Coast. I'll tell you who would know too is Trevor, and we'll get him on here in a minute because he was there. So he's going to be our timekeeper. That being said, I've got a few more shots I want to share. Of course, Twin Towers after they've both been hit. Pretty amazing photograph, and some of the conversation that we've had so far too today is, could you imagine if this happened now? What the information network and flow would be, man. It would be incredible. Dougie, what's going on, buddy? We're talking and we're remembering 9/11 today. This is one of the images that stuck with me that was very, very powerful. Of course, this is a close up of it, and all of us didn't get the close up. We saw the picture of George W. Up on stage at a school. He was giving some kind of presentation, and this gentleman leaned in and told him what had just happened. Powerful image, and the look on his face and his eyes, and then of course, pictures. I don't think any of these kind of pictures really had started coming in yet, by any means. I think this was probably after the fact quite a bit. Certainly this, very obvious that it was, may have been days after the fact. I don't know, but from the look of all the dust, I'm thinking that was happening, during that time. And of course, again, our president at the time, George Bush, and Junior there, consoling one of the firefighters and the first responders that were on scene. And then in the background, you can see what was left of one of the towers there, and our guys hanging a flag. And of course, never forget. And that's our show today. That's what it's all about. I want to bring. I'm going to bring Trevor in. And hey, Trev, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I got you great, man. I got
All
you
right.
great. Yeah, absolutely great. Perfect. First of all, those of you that don't know Trevor, Trevor is a couple of things to us here at 10-4 Magazine. And one of them is he's a regular monthly contributor, and he does the Poetry in Motion, right? Isn't that your
Right.
gig? Yep.
Yes, sir.
And in fact, one of the things that Trevor has today that we'll be sharing is a poem he wrote back at I can't remember what year it was. You said, do you remember what year now that we
Well,
found it?
I wrote it.
2007.
Well, I wrote it right after September 11th when I was sitting out in New York, stuck there.
Okay.
But it never got really published anywhere until 10-4 Magazine. It was in Trucker Talk column that Kim Grimm put it in. I want to say back in 07.
Yeah, that's right. That's where, yeah, 07 in the magazine. So the other thing that Trevor is, and this is something y'all need to know, he's a November 2017 cover trucker. Remember his green W900 that was on the cover of the magazine, and some awesome pictures of that truck in the woods up in the Pacific Northwest. And while that truck may be gone, Trevor's still here. Somebody's driving that truck somewhere, and as is the case with a lot of our past cover trucks that end up out there in somebody else's hands, including mine. So and Dan, I haven't talked to Dan about this, but I think we need to come up with. And when I got my truck on the cover, some guy made these little aluminum tags that he sent, and I don't know how many people got them, but they were like a plaque, a little kind of miniature plaque, and it said, 10-4 Magazine cover truck. And I think it had my name on it. I don't remember, a long time ago, but I had it on the inside of my truck, kind of like the Peterbilt plaque that they give you when, made for such and such, and it has that on there on the dash. But we need to do something like that again. That's just a thought. But I want to hear from you, man. You were there, and how close you were, and what it was like, and how things unfolded. Go ahead.
Well, so my dad owned 3 trucks at the time, and we had them all leased on to National Van Lines out of Broadview, Illinois, and we were pulling for the new products division. I was in one truck, and my dad had another truck, and my brother had a truck. And it just so happened at that time I was in my brother's truck, and I was delivering a load of single chair hide-a-beds. They were that's what I call them. They were like a single sofa chair that could convert into a bed. Loaded them out at Brandwood Furniture in Auburn, Washington, to take out for multiple stops in the East Coast there. And they would go to children's hospitals and whatnot. And I believe the name of the hospital was Montefiore Medical Hospital, Children's Hospital in north side of Manhattan. Manhattan up there. And I had the night before had run through Pennsylvania, right near Shanksville, and then I made my way down to Washington D.C. that night to deliver. And the next morning, I got up and early in the morning in Lorton, Virginia, which is a suburb of D.C. To make a few drops there, a couple drops there, and I can remember thinking, because I could see the big jumbo jets flying out of DC airport, and I remember thinking in the back of my mind, wouldn't it be weird if one of those things just fell out of the sky? And then I just didn't think of that no more. And then later on, I get on up into Manhattan later that morning, and I'm unloading at that hospital. And while I'm unloading, it's an outdoor dock behind the hospital, and there's a group of guys helping me unload these beds. And we heard this crash sound, but we never really thought much of it because it's New York, it's loud, And then some guy comes by and he's on the dock. And of course, everybody out there, to me, being from the Pacific Northwest, I'm not that acclimated to the New York accent. And these guys are talking like everybody's Joey Buttafuoco over here, And he comes, he comes onto that dock, and I'm gonna edit some of the words he said, but he says, "Yo, you guys know somebody ran their MF and plane into the trade towers, man." And I started laughing because of his accent. And I said, "You guys have such a funny accent." Anyway, he started. We went back and forth about his accent, and I told him how funny it was that he was cussing at me in his language. And then the second tower got hit, and I'm still not really thinking of the gravity of the situation. I don't know at that point in my life. I don't know terrorism other than on TV and in the movies.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were in this was an age of learning for everybody. These were things that this country had never experienced firsthand, and a lot of us really at all. So
yeah. I didn't when the second tower got hit, and these guys are saying that's terrorism, and I'm thinking, what, like the Russians or something? I didn't even think of Middle Eastern or anything, and I'm still thinking maybe a small private plane bounced off the building or something, and or somebody in flight control fell asleep. I mean, I'm pretty naive about that stuff.
Uh-oh. Okay, so I know what happened here. So Trevor went dark. He got a phone call, and that's what happens unfortunately on the iPhone when you get a phone call, and we're in here on the app that we use. Androids don't do that, but it does. So he'll be back in a minute. Just to kind of dovetail in on what he's saying, I mean, he's in a different part of the world. Trevor is, and from the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, and then he's in the East Coast, man. It's like night and day difference. I know a lot of folks from the East Coast, and I'll tell you, and they guys I've met and worked with out on the West Coast, and it is oh man, it's just so different. The East Coast is just so different. And I don't mean that in a bad way either. I'm just saying it's just a different culture. And in some ways, we could probably take a page from their playbook and apply it out here. There just seems to be sometimes a tighter, close knit culture there, and people really do. They discuss race, they discuss upbringing, they discuss who you are, who are your people. My people, me growing up, that knowing who your people are and where they came from was a big deal, and not just us, but everybody. There's Trevor. He's back.
Sorry about
Hey,
that.
You got a phone call right there, huh?
Well, I tried to cancel it away, and all of a sudden everything went dark.
Yeah, that's all right. You're back. So let me finish this thought, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure.
So us knowing where we come from, I think was probably why there was such a huge connection to one another there in that city, that culture at that time when this happened. And throughout the years, of course, I mean, the brotherhood of first responders, uh, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the kinship, however you want to frame it. These people are very, very tight and close knitted. So go ahead, Trevor, pick up where you left off at. So these guys are talking in their New York accents, and you're thought that was funny, but you weren't laughing at
Yeah.
what happened. You were laughing at them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I was laughing at them, and I still wasn't understanding the whole gravity of the situation. I was thinking maybe a small plane hit the buildings, and I'm
yep.
really thinking at that time of day, how many people could be in the top of that building anyway? You know, like it's probably just some empty executive suites or something. You know, um, when the towers fell, I'm, of course I'm blown away, but I'm still thinking like this doesn't even seem real to me,
Sure.
and we started getting word. I'm thinking, how am I going to get this truck out of Manhattan? I wasn't even supposed to be there with a 53-foot trailer, but I was exempted to get down to that hospital. But I'm thinking, now what am I going to do getting out of here? They closed the bridges down.
You're right.
So I made my way out across the Throgs Neck Bridge. At that time, I think the toll was something about $24 or something to get across with a big rig, and they let me cross it for free. And I just kept on booking eastbound on Long Island, and I made my way out to Bohemia, Long Island, and I found a place to park the truck at some little shopping center area. That I think there was a movie theater and a little coffee shop somewhere nearby. I just parked the truck to get it out of the way and get it out of the city. And then you just see, you could see local TVs were on everywhere, and so you could go watch what's going on, and then you'd see fighter jets patrolling into the city, and
So
I started.
in that relatively short period of time, a few things had happened. The airspace is now shut down except for our Air Force up there on patrol.
Mm-hmm.
Information is now coming over the television, but let's and this is going to come out in my interview with Ron too, but information is at a premium back then. There's no cell phone smartphones. There's cell phones,
Right.
but there's no smartphones. So there's no video in our hand, in our possession. There's no tablets. There's no nothing, man. It's dumb phones, and
Right.
that's what they were. There was no iPhone yet. So
Nope.
everybody's hearing things either AM, FM radio, terrestrial radio, or they're hearing one another over the CB, or it's in real time, real life. And that's how the information's coming out. And by the way, what time was this happening when you were there? Do you remember?
Yeah. So as you were saying that, I was certain that it was the times you were posting were the East Coast time. Uh, but back then, I was on the East Coast, but I was running paper logbooks based out of Chicago, so that's Central Time that I'd have to run my logbook on. But I live on the Pacific Coast, so on the
Yeah.
West Coast. So I'm pretty sure those were the East Coast times that were posted there about what time the planes hit and stuff. Because it was
Okay.
pretty, yeah, it was just after daybreak.
So
So
yeah, I think the point for them was to get there when for max effect of
yeah,
people, I'm sure. And
yeah,
that's probably the case. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
yeah. So it was when I was leaving Washington D.C. or Lorton, Virginia. It was still dark out in the morning. It was that early, and then when I got into New York traffic in the morning, trying to find my way into this hospital to unload. The sun had been coming up, morning traffic's going, it's busy, busy, busy,
Right. Right.
and yeah, so sitting out on Long Island out there, I'm thinking, it still didn't, I mean, I didn't, as a younger guy, I guess I just wasn't understanding the whole effect that this is going to take worldwide, nationwide, anything like that. I mean, I knew it was a big deal. And you were talking about cell phone communications. I couldn't call my wife at home very well at all on those phones back to Washington State. It was hit or miss whether I could get through to her. However, my dad was sitting down in Southern Florida at some truck stop cafe and shooting the breeze with other drivers down there. And I could get through to my dad I mean, we had no trouble getting through to each other.
Yeah.
And
Just certain
so
networks
I
worse
would just
than
talk to yeah. Yeah. So I would talk with dad and he would relay the messages from where I was at.
right.
And we ended up selling that truck right then and there. When I was sitting in New York, dad sold it to a guy that was sitting next to him. And once I could get out of New York, I bailed. And I sold the truck and got on a Greyhound bus to come home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I mean, well, and I'm going to bring Dan in here in a minute because he's waiting for us over there. in his exclusive green room.
Mhm.
The times of this is the thing that I've been hung up on all day is after having these conversations was how we got informed of what was going on was just, I mean, the time lag. So if those were the East Coast times that things happen, we didn't hear about this stuff until later on in the morning. And there was probably a good 2-3 hour delay of information to the West
Yeah,
Coast.
yeah. If people aren't up, or maybe they're on their way to their commute in the morning for the early morning commute, you know.
Yeah. Well,
I know my.
I was on a job in my truck. We were paving. It was 10, 11, 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning when we were hearing about this stuff. So it was already 3 hours old by the time we were hearing it on the news where we were at. And I think there may have been some, trickling in of some information before that, and it just maybe hadn't gotten to us. But um man, talk about, Stone Age back then, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, as I can remember kind of getting desensitized to it because it was all day long. I mean, that's all it
Yeah.
was on the news. And I remember even plugging my Keith Whitley CD in and just listening to some music just to kind of tune it out for a little while. And I ran through that Keith Whitley CD a couple times before I turned the news back on, just so I'm like, I got to tune this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to take a second, say hi to everybody that's tuned in just in the last few minutes. Tony, good to have you on the show. Thanks, Tony, my insurance agent down in Medford, who happens to do commercial trucker insurance. So we'll have to talk to Tony and get her to start getting connected to 10-4 magazine and Studio 10-4 to get what she can do for you guys out there. She does some insurance work for me. Of course, I don't have a truck to insure like that anymore, but she takes care of everything else. Pete, good to have you, man. Good to have you on the show. Always Peter Henderson. Dan the man, get ready, buddy. Here you come. How's it going?
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm gonna turn off our studio front here, and that way get it out of everybody's face. There we go. Um, well, you've been hearing what we've been talking about so far. So, hey, nice shirt, by the way. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. So it was purchased for me by my wife to wear on 4th of July because we were supposed to be in Montana with our daughter. And as some may know or remember, we had a fire a couple miles from the house and we're on mandatory evacuation around that time and ended up canceling the entire trip. So
Right.
This is my inaugural wearing of the shirt because we were just sitting here at home alone that day. So I didn't do anything. So, hey, there you go.
Yep. There
It
you
works
go. Well,
too.
it's got dual purposes there.
There you go.
There you go. So, did you get a chance to say howdy to Trevor?
I did not, but hello, Trevor. Uh-oh, he's locked up there.
Trevor got frozen, man. I guess.
Did he show you? He didn't show you his new tattoo. Do you see it? Do you see his new? Show us your tattoo there, Trev. No.
Can you hear us? Oh, you can't.
There you go.
There you go. You bet.
I got it now.
You froze up there. Dan was saying hello and show us your new tattoo.
There it is.
Oh,
right there. Holy crap, man.
Yeah. right next to my Jubich truck stop.
Put that on the screen again.
This here.
10-4 MAGEZINE.
Yeah, you know.
MAGA. We got to get the MAGA in the magazine.
Just remember that you can't spell magazine without MAGA.
That's right.
That's pretty awesome, man. In a lot of ways, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. Ron and I covered some ground on some of that in his segment. So Dan, where were you at back in this time of 9/11? What was your day like?
Well, not nearly as dramatic as Trevor's. I mean, that's such a crazy, what bad timing.
Yeah, well,
but,
yeah.
So that was 2001. So I was working at home. I had set up my home office and was working at home for about 3 years. Had 3 little ones at home. I think a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Shanna was still working part-time, and she was going to work that day. So this was one of my
And we're
daddy
not talking dogs and cats this time. We're talking kids.
We're talking kids, yes. So this was so I was the epitome of daddy daycare before it was cool. So that was one of my daddy daycare days. So I was home with the kids, and she had left to go to work. We were living in Corona in Southern California. She was working in Orange County, and she called me. And I guess maybe it wasn't 7:30. Maybe it was a little earlier. It seems like it was around 7 though. And she said, you know, she had been listening to the radio on the car, and that they were talking about bombs, and they didn't know what was going on, and turned on the TV. So I turned on the TV, and at that time, the first tower had been hit. And the talk was, a lot of it was that it was just that a plane hit the World Trade Center. And then there was some little spatterings of, you know, was this intentional? Was this some kind of a terrorist attack? But they were still kind of focusing on just this plane hit the tower like it was an accident. So we're watching that, you know, and it's amazing, crazy, you know, footage that we're watching as it's burning. And then 45 minutes later, the next one just flies right into the live shot and hits it. And obviously at that point, everyone knew what was happening. Yeah. And it kind of changed everything and just immediately. I remember Shannon going off to work, and as things developed, you know, everybody was kind of freaking out, and she's like, I can't be here. I got to go home. And so she came home, and I don't think she went to work for the rest of the week. And we pretty much just, I think we just watched the news because that's all the outlet we had at the time.
Which was what? What was the news back then?
It would have just been local news for us. It would have been, there wasn't all the cable, you know, maybe there was, but
okay. Yeah.
I mean, we had cable, but you know, we weren't watching, I don't know, maybe we were watching the CNN or something. That was kind of the news of the day back then. It was either that or a local channel. And they were just going to national anchors and whatnot. But
CNN was pretty much, CNN was everybody's entry point into cable news, and then others followed suit. But that's where everybody was you know, gleaning all their up-to-date latest information. And then of course we learned what a news cycle was and how that worked by the regurgitation over and over and over and over again of the same footage, you know, until there was something else to look at. But you know,
what that has perpetuated for sure.
Yeah. Oh, it's evolved into something else entirely now, but it's still some of the same old stuff. You know, can you imagine, and I keep asking this question, you know, what it would have been like, or if something like this, and God forbid it ever does happen again, happened, you know, with the technology we have now. Man, what a different outcome. I mean, same outcome for what happened on each of the sites, but what different outcome on the transmission of news and information. I mean, you know, you honestly, you almost have the ability to, somebody was down there, could go live on Facebook and, hey, guess what's happening here as it happened, right?
Right.
I suppose that's a good thing and a bad thing.
I don't know. Good or bad. But I think for us now, and you know, one of the most worn out phrases, it is what it is, but it would happen. Absolutely would happen. And we would be unless they shut down the communication, or people just, you know, realize, look, we need to keep communication open for emergency purposes and not for these kinds of purposes right now. So stay off your phone, stay off the internet, stay off, you know, and break it back down to, you know, simplest of information transformation and not tie everything up. But I have not been back there, and Ron talks about this in his segment. I have not ever been back there to see what it looks like now, but I hear it's quite the sight. Trevor, have you been back there since to see the memorial?
No, I haven't, but I've wanted to take my wife out there. She's never been out there either, and I wanted to take her down to ground zero just to kind of show her, and then maybe drive her around, show her where I was in proximity to things. But we just haven't been out there. Matter of fact, when I sold that truck and came back out here, I was like, I'm not going that way anymore. I was so
Yeah, it's all your
sick of
fault.
being stuck out on the road. I'm like, they're flying
Yeah.
planes into buildings out here. I'm done with this,
Yeah.
And I just stayed out west after that. So.
Cured you.
Yeah, cured me for sure. I was, but I would like to get back out there again and do it, not for business purpose, but just for vacation, if if there is such a thing, So
I hope that if you do yourself and all of us a huge solid, man. Get some great pictures of you, your wife, the ground zero, and share that with us here and in the magazine. That would be awesome.
Yeah, those buildings were, if you've ever seen those things up close and whatever, even just coming into the city, even just coming in a big rig, they were intimidating, the size of those buildings. I mean, you come in and you're like, you see them from so far away, you're just like, man, that is a presence. Those things had a presence.
Well, some of the ways that our world changed after those two towers went down, there are and I'm a Law and Order nut. I watch all the different Law and Order shows, The original show opening had the Twin Towers in. They took them out.
Yeah. Oh no.
They took them out. There was other productions and things that older, probably a little more obscure, you'll still see them, but in others, they have removed them. I don't know why, they think that it's sort of like tearing down monuments of the American history. It happened, people. Okay. So, let's not be dumb about this.
Right.
So that's probably opens up a can of worms, but I mean, it happened.
I think they're still on the Friends intro.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, anymore they're being taught that. Anymore, we're just being taught that it's just
if you need any Friends trivia.
Yeah, Friends trivia. You're the man.
Yeah. Friends trivia.
Yeah. I'm kind of like that with Law and Order. SVU, for some reason, I don't know how many times I've watched that. It's one of those ones where I could turn that on anytime, and it could be my go to sleep show. It could be my stay up and watch all night show. It goes either way. It just depends on if I'm up late and wired or not. And if I'm not, then it's like I'm out that quick. But it's just interesting. And there's so many other changes. I mean, Trevor, do you remember? Now you sold that truck, came back home. What did you do? What was that like?
I had called on my way home. I had called. So I took a bus home because I wasn't flying anywhere. And I had started calling around, just cold calling some companies that I knew were trucking out of my area, and just asked them if they needed a driver. And and I found one, Brian Van Laar. Matter of fact, I didn't even know he existed before that. I knew of his brother, and I tried calling his brother to get a job and landed on Brian. And I ended up with a job with Brian, and I stayed there for 5 years, and he took good care of me. And I just stayed out west, just running produce and frozen food and getting home, every week instead of once or twice, a summer,
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, you said you tried to fly out, but and nobody was flying anywhere. The skies over the U.S. were shut down.
It's true. So, and I wouldn't have got on a plane if you would have paid me to get on the plane. No, I'm like, nope. So I took a load of, once I got out, they opened up the bridges for motorized traffic. I got out of there and I got a load of Maybelline makeup product out of Trenton, New Jersey, and took it to Mobile, Alabama. And I dropped off the trailer in Starkville, Alabama, a National Van Lines trailer. I just left the trailer there at one of our customers' lots, bobtailed the truck over to the guy that bought it. He took me down to the Greyhound station and put me on the bus, and 3 days later I was home. So yeah, it was crazy. Everybody's asking me on the bus, how can you stay up so long? And I'm like, I drive truck for a living. This is nothing. Somebody else is driving. I can enjoy the view.
Yeah, one thing I can't remember at this point, and I'll have to think about this after the show more, is if we had any downtime or not. I can't remember if we did or not. There was so much shock to what had happened in the world, that in our world anyway, I don't know. I don't think we went right back to work. I think there was a period of processing what happened and what does that mean, and how do we get back to, being normal again? How do we even, the littlest of things too?
Oh, and it blew me away that I went into when I went into New York, fuel prices were one thing, and then when I came back out, I hit the the Petro at Bordentown, New Jersey, and it was $1.75 or something for fuel, and I was like, how am I going to afford $1.75 for fuel?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
went way up to $1.75.
Yeah. Well, and we this conversation that, and I'm going to bring Ron's segment up here for us to all check out. And it's kind of about a 20-minute or so. We may not get all of it in, but we talked about what the fallout was like after this had happened. And these were the times, for the first time ever, that we started seeing some price increases on some things. But at the same time, I do remember that there was a spike downward, and it was kind of a shot in the arm for the country to get back on its feet. And that was the downturn on some prices, like fuel went down, and we were all looking at some really aggressively priced fuel versus high priced fuel. But years after that, 3 whatever years it was, 2 years, 3 4, I don't know, I can't remember, was the first time we ever saw fuel spike over $2 a gallon for diesel. And we all freaked out, man. It was like, what just happened? How in the hell are we, the first time we ever heard of something called a fuel surcharge, and, all this stuff. I mean, talk about the world changing in front of your eyes, man. It just,
I kept thinking, how are all these truck stops with the electronic fuel price signs going to change to accommodate a number 2 up there in place of a number 1? They're going to have to change all those signs.
Yeah, well, they figured it out, didn't they?
Yeah, oh yeah, that was.
We wish we had those prices now. I'll take it.
We'd love.
Take it
exactly.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, something I really feel strongly about too is, this was one timeline marker in our world of us here on the show tonight that was part of our growing up, our going through life and aging through life. Our generation has seen so many things occur in front of itself that change how the world works as we go. I think more so than any generation. I mean, sure, you could go back to the turn of the century of the 1900s, from the 1800s, and the automobile came into play, electricity. The industrial age was on. But that being said, man, that was Stone Age compared to now and the things we've seen. I mean, look, most of us don't even use a landline. Most of us probably don't even have one in our house.
Yeah.
I mean, we went from, wow, the telephone, what a big deal that is, to, as long as it's cordless, wireless, and, cell phone, but nobody wants the other anymore.
Well, you're still using this symbol.
I know,
not this symbol.
Oh yeah, you got to go that way. Yeah, or what's a payphone? I mean, people and payphones. Some people. Does anybody carry a dime or whatever it costs to use a payphone anymore? No.
Right.
I mean, I went to the store last night. I forgot my wallet. Good thing I had my cell phone.
Yeah.
And that has saved me. I don't know how many times, because all I got to do is hold my phone down on the card reader and boom, I'm done. I'm good.
I am so hyper resistant to that kind of stuff. I'm going to get left in the Stone Age. You saw me even just trying to get onto here. I'm like, I don't even know what. I am ignorant to a lot of that.
but you made it. Well, your laptop it has some kind of issue with it, and that definitely was all you had wrong. You got pretty far. You just didn't have any audio, so microphone's not liking it for some reason. But at this point, and I got to say, I've watched some stuff today, and I talk about it in Ron's segment. I've watched. I'm happy to say that some of the bigger digital entities have taken hold of today and recognized it, whereas sometimes there's big deals, big things that they should and they don't, and it's like it didn't happen, or oh, if we mention that, well, that's not going to be okay with everybody or something. I don't know, but today they did, and it's officially Patriots Day now, I guess.
Oh, well,
Does
that's
anybody? Yeah. Does anybody know when that came into play? Because I don't ever recall that until this year, Patriots Day.
I saw it on the calendar too and thought the same thing. Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, right. So, I mean, listen, I'm not going to kick them, for trying to do something, but at this point, too, I really don't know that that's it or not. But it is now something that's a part of it. But
well, we don't hear anything about the 9/11 attack in Benghazi. That kind of gets overshadowed. That was
well,
just
there's a lot of that stuff that does, and to this day, there's still more of it than ever. I mean, just in the recent history of our country, look at Afghanistan and what happened there and how that went. So that's all topics for discussion that we could go off into, and we're not going to right now. But I do want to bring Ron up for everybody, and listen, everybody, don't hesitate to comment while the video's playing, and you guys can talk over it too. Ron and I spoke earlier today, and this is Ron Beer, and Ron Beer was our March 2022 cover trucker. If you don't know who Ron is, and also I want to get back to you, Trevor, because I want you to read your poem. Dan, we're going to read Trevor's poem.
okay. That sounds good.
Hey, everybody, you're watching a little recording I did with Mr. Ron Beer earlier today, and we're going to talk a little bit about what today is about, what it was like for him back in 2001, September 11th, 2001. And the only way we could get with Ron today was to pre-record this. So bring Ron into the studio. How you doing, Ron?
Doing great. How are you, John?
Good. Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to come on the show and talk with us today. Now known as, and I don't know how long it's been known as, if it has all along, I totally missed it, but Patriot Day. And that's what it's being really broadcast out there as now. Even Facebook recognized it, which usually Facebook is selective, and Google, same thing, very selective of what they acknowledge. So I was glad to see that they acknowledged it. But go back. This is 23 years ago, and share with us what was your experience in how you found out when you first were alerted to any of this back then.
That morning, I had left home about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was going to Vegas, going through the Mojave Desert. And back then, I was listening to the regular radio, and it came on, and I called my wife right away, and it just kind of didn't seem real at the time. And I was on my way to Vegas to do a private event for Nissan at Mandalay Bay Convention Center, and we got there a couple hours after everything happened, and they unloaded the truck, and we were leaving town, and called back and said, "Come pick everything back up." Everything got shut down.
That quick.
Just that quick. It was definitely a day to remember.
Well, and that, of course, being the key phrase, never forget, and it has been since. Something you said, and here we can kind of start relating, what it was like to get this kind of information back in 2001, which to me doesn't sound that long ago, but apparently 23 years ago it was. So 23 years ago, and I'll preface this probably before your spot airs today on Studio 10-4 Live, we didn't have the Facebook. We didn't have any social media. I mean, exciting stuff to us back then was still fax machining and texting if you had that capability, and a lot
Not
of
everybody
pagers.
had text,
So,
right?
information gathering was definitely not what it is today. And like you said, you heard it on the terrestrial radio, as did I. So did you get on the CB and start talking to guys, or were you calling people, or anybody reaching out to you?
Well, there was about 5 of us running up there together, and we all talked about it, and everybody called different people, and then we reconvened about it. And it was just like everybody's mind was blown that something like that could happen in our country.
Well, and I have to agree with you on that. It was not real to me because we're all, and I was on a job in Lodi, California, in my transfer in my 1980 Mac Superliner. We were doing a paving job, and me and the guys that were on that job started, talking back and forth on the CB radio to one another, trying to, does anybody understand what's happening? And none of us really did. It just didn't register.
That's right.
And I know probably people, some people right now would be kind of going, well, how come? And especially the younger, bunches of us, the way we got our information just wasn't there yet like we have today. So we were on a very limited basis as to what we were able to hear and see. There was first of all, so there was no phone, there was no smartphone. And I
had a flip phone.
Yeah, so some of us had flip phones, some of us, which was huge back then. I still had a Nokia, which was supposed to be the baddest phone around, a 2160, I think it was. But the bottom line is there was no peripherals, there was no video, there was none of that. So everything we were hearing was off of the AM FM radio or secondhand from our each other.
Yep, that's right.
And it wasn't until we got home, and incidentally, we finished that day out, and I got home, and that's when we were able to visually see some of the things that were going on. And now it was starting to become real and change, how, of course, it affected us and what we thought and what we were feeling and what was going on. I'm going to pause this right now, guys, because Dan and I spoke earlier, and we want to get some traffic out there about the 10-4 Trucker Rodeo and Show as well before we run out of time today. What I'm going to do is I will post Ron's interview up and share that on our 10-4 magazine Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channel for everybody to finish watching that out. But pretty much, what we went over here with, the three of us, Ron and I did as well. Ron and I got into some other conversations that are really good, worth listening to, talking about the economy then as well as we did, but also talking about things now. And there's a pretty skewed view of things that right now is going on that honestly I wasn't aware of until some things came up in my radar just recently. And I've fact checked, I've looked, I've researched. I'm not just, one source and I'm good. I've checked several, and the stuff that Ron and I talk about, it's real. So check that out, guys. Go back and look at that when you get a chance. Those of you on the playback watching later after the show is done and we're off the air as well. Dan and Trev, you guys check it out as well. But I think we were, for all of us, we had some different experiences. Trevor, yours being the most, talk about firsthand, right in your face.
Yeah.
Dan and I were like probably most of the rest of the world in our country, catching whatever we could as it came to us and experiencing it with one another. And, who the hell, nobody ever heard of Osama bin Laden. We didn't know who this guy was. For that matter, all the other names that eventually started surfacing and what was going on. But today, listening to one of the interviews that I listened to and hearing from a family member's account, this was a gentleman telling his story about his father who died there and what's gone on since then. There's a lot of injustice that's taken place. It's never been fixed in their eyes. And he gave the reasons why, and that there should be some accountability in a lot of different areas on this. Whether there will or won't be, I don't know. But a very hard time in our country, and I'll never forget what it was like getting it back to the point where the things that we so took for granted were taken away, and then we had to kind of reintroduce ourselves to it. It's kind of like learning to walk again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Trevor, how about your poem, buddy? I want to go out on that with you, and then Dan and I are going to talk some rodeo specifics.
Okay. Well, this poem, I call it Small Screen Heroes, and it relates to, it's just kind of dedicated to the first responders or military or, the people that are just day to day put their neck out there for us. And we spend our times going and paying to go see fictitious heroes in the movie screens, on the big screen. But these ones are the real heroes, and they're on the small screen, and we just get desensitized to them. So this is an ode to them, and I call it Small Screen Heroes. It says, I'm watching you on my TV. You've never even heard of me, yet you still protect me day and night, regardless if I'm wrong or right. I'm American and you are too. You're doing what you're trained to do. The only difference in you and I is if I were in your shoes, I'd die. Let me scroll down here. Sorry about that. I thought I was on the right part where I could scroll. Okay. If I were in your shoes, I'd die. You're a hero and you keep me free. You don't know what that means to me. But then again, you probably do because someone's done the same for you. You're out there and you're kicking ass while I drive my car that guzzles gas. Some bitch because they've raised the price, but they don't think about your sacrifice. You're gone away from family to risk your life to keep us free. And it's not just for the USA. The whole world needs your help today. Iraq, Kuwait, the UN too, and even France depends on you. I hope you live another day to see your children grow and play. But if you don't, I hope they know you fought because you loved them so. America is shining through the red, the white, the royal blue. And for the selfless things you do, God saved a special place for you.
I'm going to say amen to that. And if anybody's interested and wants to find that, you can go into our archives. November 2007 Trucker Talk at that time was written by Rod and Kim Grimm, who is now not Kim Grimm, right?
Yeah. Kim Jakes.
Kim Jakes. So Kim, Kimmy, you're back in the limelight. And you have to go to the 2011 link and before, and you'll find the story, or you can just search it on Google too. It comes up there. So, Dan, did you remember that?
Some of it. I mean, there's been a lot of poems between now and then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember some pieces of that. I wished I'd have reviewed the page and probably looked at what picture we had or something. It would have probably refreshed me a little bit.
Oh, got you. Well, on the as far as a picture on there, let me see.
I feel like it was two towers with the. Maybe a picture off of Donnie and Diana Harper's truck. Maybe I could be wrong though.
So this is. I'll go to the top of the page. This is going back, 2007. So you got quite a few different ones on there.
Okay. Yep.
The POW MIA truck is on there. Guys marching through the cemetery, probably VFW guys. And then the poem is down here on the bottom. Incidentally, too, Trevor gave us the unedited version. This one got one paragraph out of it. And I think that was done for just space, right? You just kind of had to make room to get it all in there.
I'm sure.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there it is. So back to the old truck logo. Pretty cool still. Like that. All right. Trevor, thanks for taking the time and joining us today, man. I appreciate it. Are you going to be making time to come down in November for the rodeo?
Oh, I wish. I keep wanting to do things like that, but I'm on such a dedicated gig. I can't break away from it to do the fun things unless they're in my route. And so I don't get to usually the luxury to do things like that. But but I appreciate the opportunity to be on this podcast here. This is my first time for doing anything like this before, so I apologize about any of my little hangups.
No,
done
man,
good.
you came through. You came through 100%, and our pleasure to have you on here, man. I mean, try to reach out to as many of our contributors as possible, and what Dan said, hey, Trevor was there, and I said, well, that's a shoe in. Let's get him. Let's get him on the show today, man. So thanks a lot. Thanks for what you do for 10-4 Magazine. Appreciate all of it.
Hey, thank you too, and see you later, Dan.
See you, Trev. Thank you.
Bye-bye. You bet.
Take care. All right. Well, thanks, Dan, for making that happen and getting Trevor on the show with us. Definitely.
Honestly, I feel like, that this show is really dedicated to that. And I think that we could end it on that with just the simple fact that our registration is open, and we're having great response on that. We're moving really fast now that we have everything in place. And I would just ask people to keep doing that. If you're interested in going to the rodeo, go on and get registered, and you can sign up for the classes that you want to be in. They're all there. There's a brief description about the class, so you kind of understand what you need to do, what kind of equipment is required for that class. We're doing a lot of fun things, but I think that we should talk about that next week. We can have a little bit more fun with this, and we'll let a few things land and figure out where everything is and have a better idea. Everything's still pretty, like I said, moving really fast. And I think that we'd be good to just end this with what we've talked about and never forget, right?
That's it. That's it.
And
No, absolutely.
And I hope that is the sentiment today brings to people, that, we remember that we are all Americans, whether we agree or not. And if there was anything good that came from all of that tragedy, was that we were so united for a while. I mean, it really brought our country back together, and we're really fragmented again. And not that we want anything horrible like that to happen again, but something needs to shift to get us all just back in the same boat, as Americans. And we're not right now. And it's there's so much decisiveness that's kind of terrible. So hopefully we can fix that soon and get back on the right track.
I 100% agree. I and also, by the way, something I've noticed lately, 100% is the new right.
Is it?
It is. Yeah, I think so. I've heard 100% more now than I ever have in my lifetime, including myself, because it just seems to, come out. It's one of those things that we, remember when Hella was one, that everybody was saying, and Hecka, and then right, and
I might have
so
missed
now we're on 100%. So I couldn't agree more, Dan. We need to. There needs to be a catalyst that puts us back together. I'm hoping that the election can do that. It needs to. We need to have this country back on the same page. People need to realize, how much inflation can we sustain? It's a dog chasing its tail. It has to stop. And there's certain ways that are going to happen to make it stop, and others are not. So, number one, be registered. Number two, vote.
Like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Like we talked about earlier. If you are happy with the way things are, then you know how to vote. If you want things to change, then you know how to vote. It's that simple. I wish everyone would just look at it that simple.
Yeah, well, sometimes, and I know nothing to anybody, but dumb it down, and sometimes it works better, and keep it simple, stupid. That's a rule from many, many years ago that used to be one of the KISS rule that everybody would live by, and it seemed to work for quite a while. So good to have you back on the show, sir.
Yep, thank you. And like I said, we'll get back to business as usual next week, and we'll talk about some exciting, fun rodeo stuff, and let you know where everything stands. But as we know, things are moving fast and things are going. So if you're looking to get involved, whether it be a vendor, a sponsor, a participant, whatever, give us a call, give one of us a call, or jump on the website to get registered and make it happen. And it's going to be fun. Things are going to happen fast. So
competitors, listen, if you think waiting until the last minute's going to be cool, it's not. There's only so many spots per event for competitors. So
Right.
we're not saying how many that is, but I'm telling you, you need to get signed up, get yourself signed up, and let's get this thing smoking along and done. And you know, I mean, then if we sell everything out too between now and whatever, maybe we have to make some adjustments. We don't know yet, but right now's time to get signed up, guys. If you're going to compete, get her done. That's
Definitely.
my best advice.
Definitely.
All right, Dan. Good talking to you, my friend. As always, we'll see you soon. And if you
too.
hang for a minute after the show, we'll go offline. Okay.
You got it. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Listen, guys. Thanks to Dan for being on. Trevor, thank you. Ron, sorry we cut you short, buddy, but we're gonna immortalize you and have your video loaded up to the 10-4 site, and you'll be able to play that back, guys. Anybody that wants to hear that and watch that entire interview, and it's a good one. Ron and I talk about some things that just make complete sense at this point where we're at, and with things the way they are right now, as well as talking back to 9/11. Thanks for everybody to tune in. Appreciate you guys as always. TW, thank you, buddy. Phil, Pete, Mike. I can't read up the list any further. I didn't see our lady Jean, but hopefully she's able to watch and catch it later if she didn't catch it tonight. Dougie, by the way, buddy, I shot a burrito for Friday, and I don't know if I posted it or not. I thought maybe I posted it in your thread, but I did have a burrito Friday night, so we'll have to do that again, man. All right, y'all, take care. Keep the shiny side up, and we will talk to you next week. Next week probably be our cover truck show, so be tuning in for that. By the way, I always talk about how these magazines come in that clear plastic sleeve. This is what it looks like. Clear plastic. I mean, look at that. It's brand new. Even the plastic looks good. So get subscribed, get your magazine delivered to you wherever you're at. You can do 1-packs, 5-packs, whatever, however you want to do it. I would recommend a 5-pack and hand some out to folks, but you choose, and get your 10-4 magazine subscription going. All right, guys, take care. We'll talk next week.